Hello, everybody. Richard Chapman here, half of the Two Bald Nerds. I've got Mike Meyers with me once again, and we're going to talk about famous IT people that you should know, maybe know. Mike, I think we're going to have some of the same people on our list, but we might have some differences too. Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, the trick is I almost wish we'd have said, who are some of the early pioneers we should both know? Who are some of the beginning people of the internet we should both know? Who are some of the people that started security that we should both know? But we've left a little bit wide open here, so it should make it more interesting. Um,
Right?
so the thing here is, to me, these are people you should be able to just say off the top of your head, and at least have some idea of what they've done. And so
Well, I
with
think
that,
I think there's some of these people that are probably both on both of our lists that most people know. Like they're very, very familiar in the industry. Why? Because not only are they pioneers now, but they've been pioneers for the last 20, 30 years, right? But I'll tell you, I did some research for people from long before this as well, too.
yeah, I was going to say my earliest one goes back hundreds of years, so it could be
Oh,
interesting. So
wow,
anyway,
hundreds. I don't know if mine goes back hundreds.
hundreds of years.
Wait a minute, there wasn't even electricity. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, but there
It's
was differential calculus.
I was going to say it's actually amazing when you stop and think about the fact that some contributions to computing didn't happen right as computers were being created. They were actually came a long time before. So mathematics and algorithms, right? Kind of leading to
Logic
programming,
and
logic.
concepts like
Yeah.
binary and things like that. These
Yeah,
things
absolutely. Yeah,
came from a
absolutely.
long
All
time
right.
ago.
So let's get the ones out of the way that we probably have on the list, and honestly are the softball ones, right? Steve Jobs. No, you don't have it on the list.
Too easy. But see, this is where I was saying that we could have maybe broken, nailed this list down a little bit more. Go ahead. I don't have anybody as recent as Steve Jobs.
Okay, so no Bill Gates.
No Bill Gates. All good people though, no doubt.
Okay, all right. What about Linus Torvalds.
Did not have
Linus.
Linus on there either. Keep in mind,
Really?
I'm not saying these people
You're not
aren't
a
good,
Linux guy?
huh?
Yeah. His name's got to be in there, right? I mean, even if, again, these are the softballs. These are the ones that I think even people that aren't in IT probably know. Although maybe Linus Torvalds isn't as common a
Well,
name
and
these
the other
days.
problem is I was thinking more chronologically. So I think most
Uh,
everybody I have is going to be pretty old, but that'll
okay,
be
all
make it
right.
more interesting. So I'm going to start mine with Ada Lovelace.
Ada's on my list too, like 1840s, 1850s, right? We're talking like 170 years ago. That's crazy.
She was born in 1815 and died in 1852 at age 36.
Yeah, I mean she's definitely an old one, but yeah, again, there was no computers back then, so this is a little bit of a different contribution to IT and computing, right?
Yeah, but Charles Babbage's analytical engine, while was never a real engine in his lifetime, there were certainly uh, earlier versions that existed.
Do you think that back then they looked at what they were doing and said this is a computer, or do you
Yes.
think that it's
In
us
fact,
looking back at that?
I'm pretty sure that even the back of the art Charles Babbage's days, they were already either calling it a computer or an analytical engine.
See, I thought they were, for the most part, referring to it as computing. So it was the mathematical equations, the algorithms, and so forth. And like with Ada Lovelace, that was her contribution. Was one of the components of Charles Babbage's analytical engine was the fact that there was an algorithm that she created, and they attribute that to her, to like the first program, right?
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And Ada Lovelace, not only did she come up with an algorithm, she helped define the concept of algorithm. So that was really, really important, especially with Babbage's engine, which worked on differential concepts. So,
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, we're definitely in the same ballpark. We've got a few of the same people. Who else do you got? Who do you have? You mentioned Charles Babbage. He's my next one on my list as well, too. So Ada Lovelace and Charles Babbage. It's interesting that Ada Lovelace was mentioned before Charles Babbage, because Charles Babbage provided the opportunity for Ada Lovelace to be able to not taking anything away from what she did, but without him, we might not have her in that case, right? Now, she definitely, I think made it more prevalent and important. She definitely took the next step, but it's interesting we both mentioned her first.
Yeah, I just think it's, the ladies first attitude of today's society. How about we just leave it at that? And speaking of ladies,
that's
I'm
just
gonna-
good gentlemanly attitude anyway.
So I'm going to jump forward about 100 years, and my next person is also going to be a gal, and it's going to be Grace Hopper.
I knew you were going to mention her. I could have bet money on that one.
I think it's really important to understand that, what Admiral Hopper did. I mean, she basically invented the concept of higher languages. Before Grace Hopper came along, the only thing we really had was machine language.
Right.
And, so she was one of the first ones to come along, and I'm embarrassed to say I don't remember which one language.
COBOL. Yeah.
And and then on top of that, Grace Hopper also established the organizational processes and the frameworks for what does it look like to run a computer, what people are doing what, and she helped standardize a lot of that type of stuff as well. So
very cool. I love it. Awesome. Well, I've got a few more obscure ones on my list.
Go ahead.
How about Herman Hollerith? Have you ever heard of Herman Hollerith?
Of course I have.
He's like, yes, I have. As a matter of fact, we were just speaking about him the other day and his contributions to the world. So he developed the first method to record and store information. Now they were on punch cards. They were on punch cards, but to be fair, I mean, that's one of the big benefits of a computer is to be able to store data and store information, right? So this was a big step.
Yeah, no, Hollerith, of course. Yes, that's a good one. So I'm going to go back even further back than him, and I'm going to do Auguste Kirchhoff's.
Kirchhoff's law.
Kirchhoff's principle, whatever the proper term is. Do you know that off the top of your head?
Oh my gosh, you know how long it's been since I can't say it off the top of my head. I would absolutely have to Google that sucker again.
The Kirchhoffs came with a principle that is still so important today, which basically means, look, in a cryptographic system, if you want it to be the most secure it can be, you have to let everybody see how the lock works and how the keys are made. But even knowing all that, you're still not going to, without having an actual key, you can't break the algorithm.
Gotcha.
But what makes it work is the fact that it's that public. Everybody can hold it up to scrutiny.
It's funny. The first time I heard about Kirchhoff and Kirchhoff's principle or Kirchhoff's law was when I was in high school. I had an electronics class, and my electronics teacher was also a bald nerd, by the way. But he was an old Navy submarine guy, did electronics in the Navy. And I remember him talking about Kirchhoff. That was a long time ago.
If he's an old U.S. Navy, then they had a lot of one-time pads going on around back in those days.
Gotcha.
They discovered that one-time pads are actually a pretty good way of doing things, because if the Ruskies were going to get into the submarine and get your one-time pads, you already had a whole lot of other problems.
Right.
And the one-time pads were all dissolved almost instantly in seawater.
Gotcha. Well, there's a lot of people in outside of who we've already talked about that have made like small steps throughout history. I included a couple other ones like Conrad Zuse and Alan Turing. Conrad Zuse created the first binary programmable computer. So
absolutely, he
definitely
did.
the first. It's actually I think they refer to it as the first functional modern computer. I guess it's phraseology or semantics, I guess. Alan Turing basically started the theories of computing to the modern computer. So he had a lot to do with the theories of what would eventually come to be as well. So
absolutely. Well, if we're going to be going back like that, let's go back. I'll go back to the 50s and 60s. How about Douglas Engelbart, the
I think
mother of
you've
all
mentioned him before.
demos?
Oh yeah. Yep. That
I,
you that video, the YouTube video you shared with me. That's right.
so what made Douglas Engelbart, not only was he important, was not so much. He's, in fact, most people argue he was kind of a terrible manager and a terrible businessman, but he had amazing vision. He was an incredible technologist, and he had a lot of people work for him who became pretty famous. Gordon Moore of Intel. I'm gonna have to look it up, but a lot of people ended up working for Douglas Engelbart. Even though he was not successful, he at least definitely got a lot of the right people together. And I think a bunch of the guys worked for him. Hold on. A bunch of guys worked for him in the 50s. And he was such a jerk that they started their own business, which I'm pretty sure was called Fairchild Industries.
Interesting.
And then from Fairchild then came Intel, as well as other folks. And it was all because of Douglas Engelbart. The man had incredible vision. But he was ambitious and quoting Julius Shakespeare. And if it were so, it were a grievous fault, and grievously hath Caesar paid for it. But but even though he was kind of a jerk, he was really important in terms of the people that he put together. Robert X. Krigley, I'm going through a list trying to remember all the people that he affected.
Well, Herman also was very influential in that regard as well too. And I think he was actually quite a bit of a visionary. He worked for the Census Department, and the reasoning behind his actions were to try to speed up the counting that they were doing with the census. And eventually he ended up founding IBM. And think about where things went because of the founding of IBM. I mean, look at how much IBM has done. Now, I think they're still as big a deal today as they have been, but I think back then they were pioneers and they were absolutely visionaries because they were doing things that nobody else had done before. So
just the idea of going to binary, that is not an intuitive concept for human beings.
Right.
And but when you have valves, electronic valves or vacuum tubes, and then moving to transistors, binary becomes but before computing, binary logic, TTL logic had existed already, but it was more of a conceptual thing. So it was really what brought that all together. I mean, somebody had to define OR gate, AND gate, NAND gate, all of that TTL stuff. And he was critical for some of that as well. Absolutely. All right. So well, so if I got Douglas Engelbart, then I have to have Gordon Moore, the founder of Intel and the founder of Moore's Law, of course.
Okay.
Do you remember Moore's Law off the top of your head?
That I do not.
So Moore's Law, I'm just reading from Wikipedia. Moore's Law is the observation that the number of transistors in an integrated circuit doubles about every 2 years. And Moore's Law has been working pretty good since 1970 up to about 2020. It continues that about every 2 years, the number of transistors on microchips doubles. And I'm going to pull up the this is directly from Wikipedia.
So we know we can trust Wikipedia, right?
Wikipedia, on technology, it's actually pretty trustworthy. I wouldn't worry. I wouldn't want to go there for political stuff. But anyway, so you can see right here. So basically going from transistor count from 1970 to 2020. Obviously, this is highly logarithmic, but it's Moore's Law has been an important tool set for calculating and even speculating growth in terms of, Because if you have number of transistors in a binary system, it does begin to give you some idea of capabilities, right? So that's Moore's law.
Can you imagine if we were still trying to do all of that with vacuum tubes?
Well, they'd be really, really small vacuum tubes, right?
They'd have to be like teeny tiny little ones. All
And
right, so here's my joke of the episode. Al Gore, didn't he create the internet?
he did. He absolutely did. It's a series
No,
of tubes, and
no,
I,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I'm confused.
No, I do have an actual name for this one though, and this is probably not one that's very well known, but Tim Berners-Lee. As a matter of fact, the website that was created is still on the internet. Did you know that?
What, the original web page?
Yes, the original web page is actually still on the internet. Have you ever looked at it? It's great.
It's not very pretty. I'm actually seeing if I can find it right now.
I'm going to share the screen. I'm going to show how wonderful.
Oh, you got it already?
I do. This is look. I mean, seriously, how great is this website? It's absolutely phenomenal. Ta-da!
Can you actually can you browse the first website?
Sure. There we go.
Yeah,
there it is. Look at that. How marvelous is this? But this was the hypertext link. This was the thing. It was making hypertext links so that you could actually, click on the links and get different information or different details. So it's absolutely imperative that we understand that Tim Berners-Lee was very important in where we are today, right?
I completely agree. And he's the last one on my list as well.
Ah, wow, look at that. All right. So we got some differences, but we got some similarities. I think we absolutely touched on some very important people that are probably not in the normal mainstream vocabulary when it comes to talking about IT people, but they absolutely are important, right?
Yeah, and the important thing to remember is that, I mean, you really are kind of expected to know who these people are. And it might behoove all of us to do a cruise through Wikipedia and bring ourselves back up to speed. At the very least, I know I've mentioned this before, but I'm going to keep mentioning it, and that is, please watch the Mother of All Demos on YouTube. It's got about 400 different people. You literally want to see the first time a mouse was used, the first time a hyperlink was used, the first time streaming video was used, and it's absolutely amazing. And just do that on your own, and you will be a better nerd. This is
a better nerd. That might be a good place to end. How to be a better nerd. I'm not sure that you need to go to the extent that we do with the follically challenged component, but do your research. Find out some of these IT people, make them a part of your normal knowledge, and become a nerd like us. And hopefully you'll be able to be like us one day, right?
Just like us one day.
I don't know. That might be a bad thing. All right. I think we should end it there. Guys, thanks so much for spending time with us today. We'll see you on the next episode of Two Bald Nerds. Have a great one.
Bye, guys. If you like Two Bald Nerds, check out our entire playlist right here. It's a lot of fun. We'll see you there.